Hey, Mikey, how you doing?
Good. How are you, man? It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a little while. Yeah, I'm doing good, just hanging out here in Ecuador. You're back in the US at the moment?
Yeah, yeah. We ended our trip in Patagonia, Chile, and we've been back for about a couple months now. So
Okay, perfect.
yeah.
Uh, has anyone ever told you that you've got a great podcast voice?
No way, really.
Yeah, I reckon.
Whenever I hear my voice on like the phone, I think, "Yo, what the hell? That's what I sound like." Trips me
Nah,
out.
it's good. Um, cool. So, yeah, we met in February, I believe. Was it February?
I think so. We were in Montanita. Yeah,
Yeah, Montanita. So, yeah, we're having a bit of a chat, and we're talking about your battles with depression and sort of what it's meant for you, how you've sort of gone through that, what you're doing about it. So yeah, really, this call is just to get a bit more context on that, and really just like explore some different ideas with mental health, especially when it comes to travel, especially with depression, because so many people have depression as well.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
Yeah. So, yeah, first off, do you want to just tell me a bit about sort of your life story so far up to this point? So,
Yeah, I love to, man. I was telling Reem, my girlfriend, before this, I was like, "Oh man, I don't know what to say. Like I'm afraid that that I won't know." And then she's like, "You kidding me? You never stop talking about this. Like, you don't know what to say."
perfect.
Because
Yeah.
like, yeah, yeah, I really love mental health and the whole topic of psychology and a personal journey. So, yeah, I'd love to talk about this, man.
All
Um,
right. Great.
yeah, I guess I'll get right to it. So, yeah, my journey with depression started when I was 11. Um, and for a long
11.
time,
Ooh, that's young.
right? Yeah, a little just kind of hit me. And I didn't have any context about how to cope with it or deal with it back then, like I do now. Um, so for a long time, it was like a mystery to me why I was feeling that way. Because my parents make a good amount of money. We're comfortable. I didn't have any like economic crises happen in my life. Wasn't struggling to find my basic needs, food, shelter, water, family that loved me. Um, so when these like feelings started to crop up, this like debilitating social anxiety and a lot of shame and feelings of doubt and hopelessness, it really was just like it's like I got cancer. Like it just felt like a disease that just happened to me, and it was super confusing. So in the moment, it just felt like it just happened. It really just felt like a cold that came on, right? It wasn't until years later, after I had gone through treatment and healed a lot and everything, that I started to realize, like, started to piece together the events of my life and started to see why it was happening. And I realized it all kind of came from childhood. So when I was a little kid, I was this very creative kid. I had a lot of expression. Like I would just do art and write and tell stories all the time, even in preschool. Before I could even like write my name, I was telling stories and making things. And I was obsessed with like this self expression of this expression of who I was in a deep way, and I seemed to really connect with that and really know who I was. Right, like I have this sort of innate sense of like this is who I am, and I really enjoyed expressing that. But I went to a private school in Salt Lake, and they had these very kind of strict standards about what their kids were supposed to look like and how they were supposed to behave, even preschool kids. And my way of behaving started to cause a lot of problems for them because when people started to try and limit my creativity and change me to other stations within this preschool, I would freak out and throw tantrums and be aggressive towards the teachers. And I just wanted to express who I was, and I hated being limited. So because of that, they actually expelled me from the preschool. Um, and I started to sense, even as a little kid, that they really didn't like me. And one teacher in particular had a lot of dislike for me. And so I really started picking up on that. I started to wonder, like, why is there something wrong with me? Um,
Starts going to your head, just being a normal kid and um, acting in normal ways, expressing yourself. But sounds like it didn't fit into that little societal box that that the educational system's trying to cram us all into.
right? Yeah. So that was my first run in with that system and how it doesn't accommodate differences, right? But yeah, so I got expelled, and then my parents were strongly urged by the board, hey, this kid has severe problems. You got to go get him tested for like neurological disorders. So my parents actually pulled me from what would have been kindergarten, and they sent me to this assessment school up in the mountains. And I went there every day for 9 months instead of going to um, school like most kids.
Yeah. Every day. Ooh.
Yeah, every day. And dude, I hated it there. I have very early memories of just feeling severe fear, severe anxiety going to this place because they were basically tearing me away from everything, telling me, or, sort of implying that there was something really wrong with me. And everyone there treated me like I had special needs, right? When I was a very, very high functioning, very creative individual, and then I was getting placed in situations where I had no ability to express. We were just eating pizza, watching movies all day, or doing things that like I was super bored with. But I had no voice. I had zero control over that environment. If I were to rebel and say, "Hey, I want to go home," like, please, they would just put me in a de-escalation room, basically like a padded room, right? Like where
Jeez,
I'm.
de-escalation room. It's
Yeah,
intense
that's what they
for a
call it.
kid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for a kid. Yeah, for I was uh, 4 at that point, almost 5.
Yeah.
Uh, and they would just leave me in there until I stopped screaming.
That's
Yeah.
all kinds of fucked up. That's just going to exacerbate the issue. And that's sort of been shown in, let's say, on a bigger scale. We've got like the whole sort of judicial system, the prison system. Is sort of like, you get punished for not abiding by these sort of rules that are placed on ourselves. And more often than not, it just makes people worse. It's like, oh, I'm going to punish you for doing something bad. Then that exacerbates that behavior and makes things just all that much more worse instead of actually looking at the root cause of it or looking at different ways to sort of help someone out and perhaps help them express themselves in different ways or even just nurture, foster sort of different ways of, like at that point, you're a kid, you're a little kid. Shouldn't
Yeah.
matter what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I totally agree with that. Yeah. There's some issues with the system we have. And I think it's slowly changing, but um, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how the story ends, and we'll get to that. But yeah, I was at a very early age, misunderstood. And that's the big driving force of the depression, I think, is misunderstanding of
Yeah,
very early sort of knowing who I was, I think. Right. I remember
yeah, absolutely.
I remember having the sense of this is who I am, and I love this. And then that got called into question by the adults in my life. And then, well, long story short, um, so after 9 months of this assessment school, right, of
Mm-hmm.
just of just hating it, kind of being traumatized by it, knowing that this is not who I am. Like even at a young age, knowing like I don't feel like I'm supposed to be here, but I am. I can't do anything about it. Um, they after 9 months, they still hadn't figured out if there was anything wrong with me. So that's kind of a red flag right there, right? Like my parents asked them, like, "Hey, you guys know what's wrong with this kid?" And they're like, "We need more time and money, right, to figure it
Yeah,
out."
classic.
Right, exactly. So that's a pretty good sign that I didn't need to be there, but they were still willing to keep me there, just to make some money off me, and that's pretty screwed up. But thankfully, my parents withdrew me at that point, and for about a period of 6 more years, I just had a normal childhood. I went to public school. I made a lot of friends. I was really confident in myself. I didn't really have a lot of doubt. But then, adolescence hits, and that's a time in developmental psychology when you go from this egocentric state of like everything is about me, and you don't really understand social interactions or where you fit in a society until you start that developmental process. Um,
Yeah,
so I started going through puberty around age 11, and that's when the social anxiety started. Just like it does for everyone, right? Like, um, I think that's most people's experience at that time is there's a lot of awkwardness, social anxiety, sort of this like, how do I fit into the society feelings, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's part of being a kid. It's part of going through that stage of your life and sort of, yeah, figuring out who you actually are, or um, as you're sort of shedding your skin, so to speak, what resonates with you in this life, what sort of direction you want to go.
Right. Yeah. It's a time of big decisions and big questions about the self and where we fit into everything. So I started
Yeah.
having those just like everyone. And a lot of anxiety is normal in that stage, right? But because of my early experiences in life, I interpreted that anxiety as, this means there's something wrong with me. This means I'm fundamentally screwed up, you know? And
Mm.
nobody told me that was normal. Nobody told me that this is just something you go through. So, and also my parents being conditioned by what they'd been told by the private school back in the day, right? Like, there's something wrong with this kid. So as soon as I start coming to them and I'm like, I'm feeling so anxious, I don't know how to talk to people, all this stuff. They, very much overreact, just as I was, and they're thinking, oh, there's something wrong with him. So again, like the saying goes, don't fix it if it's not broken, right?
Yeah.
Again, I was running into a very normal thing, and it was being interpreted by all parties as, this is a sign of severe mental illness, that.
Yeah. I guess people reinforcing that to you as well. It's going to
Yeah.
have a big impact on your own psyche and create problems down the road, because you're like, oh, why aren't I normal? When very much it is a normal process to sort of go through these emotions and this transition time in your life. Like nowadays, do you still feel depression? Do you like, where are you now with this? How has this manifested into your life, and what have you done about it so far?
Yeah, great question. And the full story about this journey is probably too long for this podcast episode, but basically, I'll summarize. Um, the depression went on and kept getting worse for a long time, and it was kind of reinforced by everything I was experiencing, my parents, and then psychiatrists and therapists. Didn't really didn't really receive a lot of deep help or meaning or anything about what I was experiencing. It kind of just, every mental health professional I went to kind of reinforced, yeah, there's something wrong. Here's a pill for it. Here's a treatment for it. Yeah, there is something wrong with you. And so, like you kind of said, that got affirmed again and again. Eventually, I got to the point where I was, very extremely suicidal and was just hanging on for life. I hated myself. I didn't have any sense of like, that there was anything good in me. It was basically just waiting for something to save me, because I just didn't feel like I could do anything myself. But yeah, we pretty much tried every treatment at that point, and nothing had helped. No antidepressants, no therapy, nothing had helped at that point. It was just getting worse and worse. But one of my best friends got sent to this treatment center out in southern Utah, and kind of um, it was really interesting how it happened. But my parents went to visit him, and they told him, like, Michael's really struggling. We're really worried about this guy. And he was like, I think this place would be great for him. And kind of in a last ditch effort to save me, they sent me there. They decided to send me there. And in this treatment center is pretty much where everything changed. Um, and I can go more into detail about that if you want, but
Yeah. I'm
yeah.
curious, like, what sort of treatment center is it?
Mm.
Yeah, tell me a bit about it.
Yeah, so this is where the treatment journey actually started to begin for me. So I was 17 at this point, gone through a lot of depression at that point, and so basically, it's residential treatment. So it's I was there all day, every day in this facility out in the desert for 14 months, pretty much, so a long time. And yeah, I basically went in with nothing left to lose. Like, I had dropped out of high school at this point, had zero friends, was pretty much just like waiting to die, pretty much, to put it.
Yeah, at the end of the road. So what's to lose?
Exactly right. Like, I had nothing left, so I was just like, no, fuck it, I don't care. Send me here. It's not going to change anything. But yeah, so I pretty much ended up in a place where I was separated from everything I'd ever known again for the second time in my life, right? Like first, the treatment center when I was a kid, now this one. But something was different. And what was different is in this treatment center, you didn't graduate until you worked through the entire program. So it was on you. Like you earned a certain amount of points every day for doing things well and participating, and you lost points if you didn't do well, didn't participate. And so, and you had to earn a certain amount of points to graduate and leave the program, right?
Yeah.
So for the first time in my life, I found myself in a place where it was on me to change if I wanted to, and I could
Mm.
make that choice or not.
So
And
sort of handing that self-responsibility back to you, sort of giving you more of a sense of power that, hey, this is in my hands, recovery is in my hands, I can actually do something about this. And recording that sort of thinking, or, yeah, sort of encouraging that thinking process.
yeah, and this place it had a lot of problems. It wasn't perfect. It was really tough. It was like a military style treatment facility. Like they made us do hundreds of push-ups, laps outside.
Oh, well.
Yeah, like they pushed us really hard, and mentally too. It was not the healthiest place. Like there was a lot of rigidity, and they were really mean to us. And so in the beginning of this treatment center, I actually found myself in a worse place than I'd ever been in before because I was trapped in here, just like I was as a kid. Zero ability to express myself or free myself. I was completely stuck, and I was there. I didn't even know how long I'd be there. It could be a year, it could be multiple years, and it was all up to me. And so I felt this crushing shame and desperation of like, now I'm in a place where nobody loves me. Now there's nobody to help me, and it's all on me, and I'm failing. And that was hard, man. That was like the toughest.
Yeah. Do you think that's sort of the push you needed, to be sort of thrown into that situation where you need to take radical responsibility and really sort of push yourself to learn and grow and develop and heal in these sorts of things? 'Cause, yeah, I guess when you don't have a choice in some ways, sometimes that might help you just push forward and really, yeah, try new things that you wouldn't otherwise.
Absolutely. I think that's pretty accurate. It all kind of came to a point on actually, kind of everything you're talking about. I so I was going through this treatment program and was just running into a ton of problems. Like I just couldn't like there was a ton of rules there and I just kept breaking them by accident, right? Even simple things like having an untucked shirt would make you lose half a day of progress there. So I quickly
Yeah.
like fell into this deep sort of hole of like I was accidentally breaking all these rules, was super flustered and didn't know how long I'd be there. And one of the consequences they had there was called the wall. Um, very ominous, right? The
The
wall,
wall, you
the
said.
wall. But it was they if you broke a rule or just were like doing something they didn't like, they would make you take your chair and face it against a blank white wall in the common area, and you had to sit
Time out.
facing. Yeah, right. But you had to sit facing this wall, unmoving all day, every day for sometimes weeks on end.
Oh,
Um,
damn.
and they would bring you food and water and stuff. They take you to the bathroom, but you basically were like staring at this wall all day, every day. And it for someone like me, like I kind of explained, I was super energetic as a child, and that created problems, right? Because
Yeah.
I wanted to express. So for someone like me to be so confined to just staring at a wall all day was like, man, I was just like panicking 24/7, going through panic attacks. Like I could barely, you know, uh, rein in because it was so hard. But
Oh,
anyway,
damn. That sounds like a pretty intense place.
it was, yeah. And they've actually gotten in trouble with the state since then. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, for doing that stuff. But when I went there, they hadn't changed yet. So, but yeah, so I know, super tough situation. But this is where I'm getting to. The moment everything changed, I was on this wall, right? And I had done a few things that the program director really didn't like. And so I was on for about 2 weeks straight at one point. And I was just at the end of the road. Like I was so down, completely hopeless. Not only was I still going through the same depression as before, but I was in a place, like I said, where I was not trusted. I was being treated like a criminal, basically, and now I was on the wall, and now I couldn't even make progress towards going home. I was just stuck here every day, basically wasting my last chance at survival away. And I knew it. I knew this is it, and I'm wasting it, and I'm failing, and it was all on me, and I just was so down. And this one night, I was sitting on the wall, kind of like crying and just feeling like hope is lost. And they brought me this poem, because we had to memorize a poem every week. And I started reading it. And the last lines of this poem, it went like this. It said, "It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul." In that moment, I had nothing left to lose. I was at the rock bottom of rock bottoms. And the only thing I could rely on in the world was myself. And when I read that poem, it just clicked. That last line, "I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul." All of a sudden, this feeling came over me that I hadn't had since I was a little kid, of warmth, like a fire was kind of burning in my heart. It was this almost supernatural feeling of love that rose up, not despite the darkness, but almost because of it. It was because in that space of having nothing, I was open to everything. And in that
Yeah.
space, in that emptiness, rose this love for myself that had been pushed down and repressed my whole life since I had gotten sent to that school as a kid. And finally, in this moment of great despair, when I was just basically praying to the universe, "Save me. I don't know what else to do. I'm willing to do anything." It came up, and I was just sitting against this wall, just like crying, like tears of joy that just came out of the darkness. And it was the joy that, despite everything, I'm still here. I'm still alive. And even though
Yeah.
things are hopeless right now, maybe I can get through this if I hold on to this feeling right now.
Yeah, definitely. And it shows you that it exists as well. So
Yeah.
when you go through these experiences and you've been in depression for so long, life sort of just gets extremely grey. You sort of lose that connection with feelings like love and gratitude and hope and all these good things that we want to experience as people. Um, so that sort of gets pushed into the background and just, yeah, having that sort of, whatever you want to call it, maybe awakening of sorts, rekindled that feeling and made you realize, oh, there is actually another side to this. This isn't just the long, endless tunnel into darkness that's never going to end. There is something on the other side, and there is something worth actually pushing towards and fighting towards. Um, yeah, that's a interesting story and intense. Like intense that you went through all these different modalities or treatments or ways to try and get you out of your sort of current mindset and problems. So, would you say that your depression from that moment it started to get better over time? Was it sort of like the flick of a switch, or what happened from this moment?
Yeah. Yeah. Good question. That was kind of the moment that things shifted. And it went from feeling this like great dependency on other people to save me, right? And then in that moment, even when I had no control over my circumstances at all, I had at least that connection to myself that, you know, I call it like the inner flame, right? Like I felt this inner flame of love, of everything I could be, and it wasn't dead. It was alive, even in that darkness. And it took losing everything to find it. So it from that point on, things like got hard again. I was on the wall, off the wall. I got had a lot of consequences, and it was really slow moving to get into this program. But over time, as I started to do better and just kept going, so that's
Yeah.
kind of where it changed. Nothing external really shifted. It was internal, and that was the the goal, right? Like you can't necessarily control the entire external world. And maybe it takes losing everything external to see that really for things to change.
Uh, Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
Uh,
That's actually something I wanted to touch on. Is it's often when people go to rock bottom and go through really difficult experiences in life, that's when later on down the track they become the most empowered. So you think there's a lot of, well, think about there's many figures in this world, great people who have gone through so much, but that contrast has sort of given them a new lens of reality and given them this strength and this perseverance and allow them to reach these new heights of just love and compassion and joy that I feel like it's almost an advantage to go through these really dark moments in your life because it does provide that contrast. If you just have a cruisy life and sort of everything stays the same, nothing's really changing, then um, I feel like you're almost limited in a way because you haven't experienced the other side of that. And because you haven't experienced the other side of that, you haven't gained that appreciation and that, um, I guess that wisdom that there is. It's like, why are we here? Like, if we go through these really difficult experiences and you come out of it, you're a happier person than someone who's never been through that because you understand how dark it can get and how miserable life can be. Definitely an interesting story. Thanks for sharing that. I'm interested in what, just say there's people listening to this right now who do have depression and who have um, tried a bunch of different things to really try and get out of that headspace and heal, but nothing seems to be working. What sort of suggestions or advice would you have for these sort of people?
yeah, that's great, man. And I think, it probably will be different for different circumstances. Sometimes like rigorous treatment is like needed for some things, especially trauma.
Yeah,
It takes a lot of rigorous healing to work through that. But I would say that I think in the very beginning of the process, what has to shift is that external to internal relationship, right? Like it's really got to shift from how can I control my circumstances to suit my mental health the best way possible. It needs to shift from that being the first step to that sort of being the later step. I think the first step has to be, who am I, and who am I on the deepest possible level. And to get to that, I think you really have to develop a self-awareness of what you're going through, um, the ability to sit in the different emotions. For me, I was kind of forced into that state in treatment by being against a wall, unable to escape from how I felt, unable to, do anything but feel it completely,
mm,
feel everything completely. So things like meditation and journaling, where you're just spending time just reflecting on the raw, uncensored emotion, I think is a way to begin that.
yeah, great.
Yeah.
I completely agree because often, like when we have, just say there's something dark inside of us that we're running away from, or there's a feeling that we're trying to avoid, we try and distract ourselves and do different things and sort of run away from that particular feeling. But like what I've learned through my own journey and what like I've met many people who sort of would agree with this and have gone through similar processes, um, is that we healing comes through feeling. Like when we actually just allow ourselves to feel everything shitty that we're feeling instead of trying to put a band-aid over it or trying to distract ourselves so we don't need to face that uncomfortable emotion, that's when we really start discovering ourselves. We start going deeper into our own sort of consciousness, our own psyche, and in a way, sort of pulling everything apart so we can rebuild it in a better way. What would you suggest in terms of techniques and different things that you could do to just say feel an emotion? So you touched on journaling, which I agree is great because like you're expressing yourself as well and just really getting everything out. Meditation is a good one. Anything else you would suggest to just like be present with the emotions and
I definitely think that nature is huge. That's been a big part of my journey as well. because for people that are struggling with intense emotions, it's very difficult to sit down and just be silent, right? It's a lot easier to sort of expel that extra energy by, you know, exercising or getting out somehow. So I think maybe in the beginning it's easier to do sort of that mindfulness and stuff in nature, like in movement. So, and I know for some people it might be difficult to connect with nature because they live in a big city, but finding a space anywhere where you can be silent with your thoughts, where other people aren't filling that space or other things, right? And I guess
Mm.
my recommendation would be just go on a long hike alone and
Yeah.
just let that hike kind of lead you, and just see what comes up in your mind.
Walking, especially through nature, is definitely a very meditative practice. And nature itself is very healing. Like when you get out, it's sort of like the world stops, your problems start falling apart. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
or really start like disintegrating because you're just in like raw nature, especially like when you're out in the wilderness. You're not thinking about work, you're not thinking about society, you don't have cars buzzing around you, people who are angry, you don't just have all that mix of emotions and energy. It's very, very much raw where you can actually just process what you're feeling and your different emotions. And um, I definitely know, like when I was depressed, it was a massive remedy for me. I used to get out like every day in nature, just whether it's a nature reserve or drive down to the beach or the wilderness where there's not many people around and just spending time by myself. And I feel like that really helped recharge me in a way. It helps sort of trigger some of these better emotions that we want to experience instead of everything just being gloomy and grey and sort of having always dealing with stress and worry and shame and guilt and stuff like that doesn't really exist when you're out just in the elements. You traveled for a little while, and this is something that I want to touch on with you.
Yeah,
It was quite a few months that you were traveling for, right?
yeah, 7 months, man.
Yeah, yeah, just like around South America, backpacking, experiencing different things.
Yeah, we did 5 different countries in South America.
Okay, yeah. So what I wanted to ask you is, what do you think the relationship is between traveling and mental health? Or to put it in another way, how do you think traveling, especially like I'm not just talking about vacations, like going away for 2 weeks to get away from work. I'm talking about actually leaving everything behind for a while and just yeah, being free, just traveling, just experiencing different cultures, different people, meeting different people, going through all these different experiences. Um, how do you think this impacts mental health? And would you suggest that sort of like more people should travel, or it's not really necessary, especially for people who have depression or maybe anxiety? So, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, travel for me has been one of the most healing things throughout my college experience while I was still processing everything that had happened to me. And you know, even now, I really like that's a huge part of my life. I don't know if I could. Um, I don't know. My mental health really hinges on having that as a possibility of exploration and finding new things. So yeah, it's a huge part of my life. And I would say, yeah, as part of a healing journey, it's incredibly important to have that, right? Because you're once I think, you know, in the beginning, things sort of need to, like, that relationship with yourself, I think is the most important thing to focus on, right? And that can really happen anywhere, because a lot of times it's not easy just to you know, leave everything, right? Especially for
Yeah,
someone that it seeks comfort so much in a time of great distress.
yeah,
If you can do it, 100%. Get out there. Get out of your routine. Get out of these things that are holding you in this space, confining you, and go out and explore the world. Right. Find a way. But if that's too much, especially in a time of great distress, I would say focus on your relationship with yourself first and find that core. Right. You know, for me, it felt like a fire. Right. Like this thing I
mm,
can rely on going forward, And then slowly, I would say, consider the possibility that you can travel the world, because this day is incredible. This age, I mean, there's so many opportunities. Like, Daniel, um,
Hmm.
like for like you did some volunteering, right? Where you were,
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm actually working here now at a shamanic healing center. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, I've done volunteering in many different places. That's often how I travel around. Is sort of
Hmm.
I don't do it with a lot of money. I just find different opportunities, and sometimes those turn into jobs. Sometimes I stay for a year or 2 years and just sort of keep moving around.
Yeah, and how expensive is that? How I guess.
Not really that expensive. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, like it. Just say when I'm volunteering in a hostel or something. Um, just say with a fairly frugal lifestyle, you could do it on like maybe $200-300 a month.
Yeah,
Um,
incredible.
yeah, like you don't need to. Yeah, you don't need to spend much at all. But like it's always nice to have a bit of a safety net and sort of build up a portfolio of different skills and things you can do. So if you are running low, you can either volunteer or find jobs. So like for me personally, to make sure that I could always do this and have a lifestyle that I actually love and that resonates with me. I learned how to teach English, learned how to bartend. I've done lots of work in like hostels and retreat centers and different things. So these are jobs that you can find anywhere in the world.
Yeah,
And
and I
it's sort of
think,
like it's always a safety net. Like if I'm running low, I can just pick up work. Like it's been almost 5 years since I've been home now.
wow, that's a long
So
time.
it's, yeah, yeah.
That's
So it's
awesome.
yeah, it's been a while, but yeah, like I agree with what you're saying. You can make it work, but yeah, your relationship with yourself is very important. So first, I want to ask you, how would you say travel, especially like just say if you travel by yourself for a while, how would that relate to your relationship with yourself?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think there's a huge like I mean, huge healing element of traveling. And that is like almost similar to the experience that kind of sparked this. This feeling of like that flame, right? That love and acceptance I kind of found within.
Hmm,
That experience sort of removed all distractions, and it just made me focus on me. It brought me within, right? I was not as concerned with external at that point because I couldn't control it. So boom, went within, and
yeah,
that's where I found this power, right? That I used to then begin my healing journey. So traveling, in a sense, does that same thing, right? You're removing yourself from all these environmental cues that are maybe cueing anxiety or depression or whatever else, right? You're removing all the negative influences in your life for a moment, for a time,
yeah,
and
that's a good way to put it.
right, yeah, and then you're in an environment that is totally new and is completely up to you to explore how you will to meet, to make connections, um, and to basically start again from a place that is centered on you. So I think it's incredibly healing for that aspect, right? It's your journey, it's your adventure.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
goes how you want.
And you don't have, yeah, like as you mentioned, you're not tied to all these cues and these stresses and these different things that you worry about on a day-to-day basis. So like when you are traveling, um, it's the main focus is on yourself. It's you can be whoever you want to be when you're traveling. You're not tied to a certain lifestyle or a certain routine or a certain friendship group. It's like you can be and do whatever you want to do when you are traveling, which is something that yeah, I found has given me great joy and great peace throughout my life because it's like you can be in all these crazy situations, um, and there's just something about it that is like it just keeps moving. It's so fleeting. It just you go to the next experience, then the next experience, then the next experience,
Yeah,
and it sort of gives you this realization that reality is impermanent, and I feel
yeah,
like that's a big part of where like depression can come from. It's a big part of where stress and worry come from. It's been too latched onto life and the material, um, and people just get sucked into that their life situation blows up to be the end of the world, or at least
yeah,
the center of the world, and it's like I feel like travel sort of gives you that other perception of that. It's like, no, like things are always changing. You're always with different people. You're always in a different country doing something different. Um, and once you start just embracing that, that impermanence, that life is fleeting and every experience is going to end sooner or later, there's no escaping it. It's inevitable. That's when I feel like you can actually really start leveraging it and start enjoying life for what it is, because you know it's got a timer on it. It's got a timer on it for all of us. And it's like, okay, this will end eventually. All suffering will end eventually. All
Yeah.
happiness will end eventually. So, what do we make of this experience right now?
Yeah. Yeah. What do we make of that? That's a key component, right? How's that
Yeah.
been?
Yeah.
How's that been for you in your journey, man? Like, since you've been out for so long, how has that meaning um, shifted or expanded with your experiences?
It's my life experience has completely transformed from the way I used to see things. Like I'm not just talking about mentalities and perceptions, like even the physical structure of things, how I see things, my vision is different. The smells are different. Like every element of my life experience has changed from when I was like when I first started this trip in 2018.
Yeah.
Um, like even before that, I spent 1 year backpacking around South America, and there's a huge just shift in my own consciousness, and um, yeah, just realizing that like I am free, that life is what we make it. We don't need to be tied down to these jobs or this house that like in Western society is sort of laid out in front of us, and we're sort of told this is the only way we can go about life. We need to be responsible people. We need to have a family. We need to get a good job, buy a nice house, and sort of go through the same ropes that everyone else does. But sort of throughout my own life experience, just traveling and doing different things and being happier than I've ever been in my life,
Yeah.
even when like I'm going through something difficult or I feel heartbreak or I feel like I'm stressed in a really difficult situation. There's always this thing in the back of my head that um, that activates saying, you know, this is temporary, this will end. And before I know it, within a day or two, as long as I process it, I become my own core. I just go through the motions and do whatever I need to do. This pain will end. And I think yeah, it's really shifted my reality just in ways that I once never thought imaginable. So yeah, I'd definitely recommend it. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, like I feel like traveling, especially just sort of breaking free and doing your own thing and realizing like it's more than just the act of doing it. It's realizing that you can create or manifest your reality in whatever way you want it to be. You can always make money. You can always have a good life. Like it, you don't need to go through these ropes that we are told is
Yeah.
normal or the best thing to do, because in Western society, most people are quite miserable.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not most, but many people are miserable.
Good
And
amount for
then they try and tell you that you need to do the same thing and you need to be miserable as well. And it's like, oh,
yeah.
why would I go through these ropes um, when I can construct a much better life, just being free, just going anywhere I want in the world, picking up work anywhere I want in the world,
Yeah.
um, just
Yeah.
having a great dating life and just meeting friends and amazing people no matter where you go. Like there is so much just joy in it.
Yeah, right. I think it really stuck out to me when you were saying in the beginning of that, how everything is new, right? You're like your whole reality has been shifted, like the smells and even sensory experiences. Right? Does that sound?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And it's like, yeah, when you're going through it, it's just you're in a constant act of recreating yourself. You know,
Yeah.
like you have to in a way, because when you go to another place, especially if you're by yourself or yeah, you don't have that safety net or anything. You're constantly you're like the only person you're with is yourself, which is an interesting feeling. And I know that makes some people nervous. A lot of people are like, well, I don't want to travel by myself. I don't want to like I need some sort of security net. Um, but when you do actually, yeah, travel by yourself and have these experiences, then yeah, like you really start to build a strong relationship with your own self, and you realize that yourself is whatever you want it to be. You don't need to be fixed in a particular way, like your personality. Like your personality is different around every single person that you meet in to some extent. Every person perceives you in a different way. So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon because like the life experience just shifts so much through it. But yeah, in saying that, before we wrap up, what you've mentioned a few times that I wanted to just like tap into a little bit more,
Yeah.
was you said building the relationship with yourself, or you were talking about this spark that sort of activated. So when you're going through this treatment and you went through this experience where you started feeling this love and this joy, and that was sort of your exit out. Um, that was sort of your exit out of depression, or at least that illuminated the road forward that you could actually get out of it.
Yeah.
What what do you think caused that? What do you think that actual experience was from your perspective? Like, how would someone sort of go about experiencing a similar thing if someone's really like stuck in their ways and really just miserable in life, and they're like, fuck, like I'm at the end of my
Yeah.
road, I don't know what to do, I've tried so many things, I just need some sort of spark, I need to feel something again. um so yeah, I guess I'm just curious about what is your perception of that, and why do you hold it so closely in your heart?
Yeah. Great question, man. I think so. What that experience was, I've been trying to go back and basically continually remain close to that all this time, and it's helped me stay on a course of healing throughout all this. No matter what happens, I have
Hmm.
that experience to look back on and be like, and then feel again, recreate again. Like just the other night, we got some troubling news from our landlord that we might have to vacate. And this unknown of like where we go and all this stuff was really stressing me out, and I was just laying in bed, um, unable to escape the stress, and I just let it come over me, and I just sat in that feeling, and it was really hard, but I sat in it. And then from that feeling, a very similar experience from when I was in treatment came, of just that 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 fire, right? And it's just like kind of like what you said, like you experienced in traveling, right? It was just like, this is going to be all right. That you're not going to die. You're not gonna, you're not searching for food or shelter or any, right? Like there's no survival danger. And really all you're being faced with is a challenge, and you're going to
Hmm.
get past it. This thing within you is going to live. It's going to survive this challenge. And so I keep coming back to that feeling. Um, and really, I think what it comes down to, uh, for people that don't know where to go, right? That are just at the end of the line. It comes down to, I think, giving yourself somehow a space where you can just sit with your experience of consciousness, just sit with this humanity begging for you to understand it, that is begging for you to sit with it and
Hmm.
to give it its own voice, right? Instead of trying to push it down with things we do, all these
Yep.
distractions. Um,
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
yeah, like
Give yourself an audience.
exactly, yeah. Give yourself an audience, right? I think I was listening to a podcast. Someone said, "Invite it in for tea." Like you're not
Hmm.
inviting it in to be the end all, right? Like I'm not going to stay in this feeling forever, but you're inviting
Yeah.
it to at least give it a voice and to
Yeah.
say
Yeah. That's it.
what's it trying to tell.
Listen to it. Like there's a lot of, often in that pain, there's a lot of wisdom and knowledge buried in it that we can use to better our own lives.
Yeah, and that's the key right there. I'm going to go off what you said, man. I think that's a super important statement. There's a lot of wisdom in suffering, and I think what we've been conditioned so much in Western society is that the absence of suffering is the goal, or the absence of suffering is the place to start, right? So we remove all these things from our life that are causing us suffering, and then we start at a place of peace. But I don't think that's true. I think it's actually a lot more dynamic than that. I think we begin human. We begin
Mm.
in everything that makes us who we are, and we have to begin in that space, or else there is no moving forward, right? We're just going to repeat the same old cycles of pain again
Yeah.
and again until we hear them, understand them, and then move forward. So giving yourself that space, somehow, if that looks like getting away from everything and traveling, if that looks like going into nature and being alone, if that looks like journaling at night before bed, if that looks like meditating and sitting in that feeling, or talking to a therapist that's a good therapist, and letting those voices be heard, finding some way to give a voice and to really listen instead of trying to avoid or look for other
Yeah.
people, right, to save you.
And yeah, I think that's the key right there. Um,
Yeah.
it's all about just, yep, giving yourself that voice, giving yourself that audience, letting yourself be heard, let it come out. Like no matter what you're going through, there's something to be learned from that, and there's something waiting to express itself. So it's just
Yeah.
tuning into that and finding your own personal path and your own personal route to allow that voice to come out, to allow that expression to come out. And when
Yeah.
it does, that's when we really begin to start healing. And like, like not just healing, we gain so much more through that experience as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, thanks for sharing all that. Yeah, you've
Yeah.
definitely had a interesting story, and I hope all the best. Sort of yeah, moving forward, and hope you continue that journey of growth and development, because it's a very rewarding sort of journey. So from what I've understand, you wrote a book, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Could you share a little bit about what it's about?
Yeah, man. Thank you. So this book that I'm publishing is it's called To Hold a Stolen Flame. Um, and it is a basically kind of a memoir about my journey through healing. So there's 9 stages of my life that are expressed in this book, like 9 chapters. And each one has a combination of journal entries from that time. Um,
Okay, that's interesting. So you
yeah,
actually incorporate in, yeah, like real pieces of sort of
yeah,
your works and your memories into that, which is cool.
yeah, yeah. So I have real journal entries from each period. And then I have art, and then I have poetry, and then I kind of give a history of like what was happening, right? So you have the 4 pieces, the actual like me narrating, then you have the actual journal entries from that time, what I was actually feeling, and then the art and the poetry, the expression that went along with that. So um,
Yeah,
yeah, it's just kind of
awesome. Good work for doing that.
yeah,
It's a
thanks,
lot
man.
of work to write a book and sort of want to get your message out. So, what would you say your message is for the book? What are you trying to get out there into the world?
Yeah, well, the title kind of says it. It's to hold a stolen flame, and the book really talks about what that looks like, and really goes deep into these experiences that came to me in the darkest time, that actually became my purpose for living, that became my urge to help other people, and to keep growing, right? Like from that darkest place actually came, like you said, a ton of wisdom and a ton of
Mm,
power, that actually motivated me to travel, to study psychology, to meet people, and seek wisdom and healing, and that has been my purpose for living. So the book kind of just is the blueprint of what that looked like for me, of that journey of from nothing finding everything.
yeah,
Um, yeah,
I'm sure there's many people who can resonate with it, with your story, and sort of yeah, learn about what you've been through, and you know, we see ourselves in every other person. We resonate with different things, and yeah, it's good that you're getting that out there and sort of wanting to be of service and help other people. Um, so is it available for sale right now, or whereabouts can people purchase the book?
yeah, yeah. Thanks for asking, man. So if people go to MikeyMindBlown.com, that's MikeyMindBlown.com. Uh, there will be a tab where people can check out the link to purchase the book or just to check it out. Um, as and a lot of other stuff on there too. Blog posts and whatnot. And then, or they can go to my Instagram, Mikey, Mikey _ Gwynn, Guynn at Instagram.
Mhm.
there's a link in the bio that'll lead people to the Amazon link.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, well, it's been a good conversation, and yeah, thanks for sharing sort of your life story and everything you've gone through. Um, yeah, because I remember like when we were in Montenegro and we met for the first time, we went into this a little bit, but it's good to actually revisit that and get a broader sort of get more depth to the story because there are a lot of people sort of going through shit at the moment, especially nowadays. You have a lot of depression, you have a lot of anxiety, and yeah, it's good to just get different people's opinions and see what worked. Because yeah, like no one's path is exactly the same, so it's good to get that other voice into it. So yeah, thanks for your time and thanks for being on this podcast.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much for this opportunity to chat with you. It's really good to talk with you again. And man, I hope we meet up in this wide world again, man. Go on some more adventures.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a small world. Never know.
Never know.
All right, brother. Appreciate you.
Appreciate
Have
you
a great
too.
day.
You too, man. See ya.